Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Well, they've decided to cremate Humphrey. No funeral.
I feel so bad for Lauren.
He didn't leave anything. No will. No health insurance. Not even his Maltese falcon.
And what exactly is your plan for when you kick the bucket?
I'm much healthier than Humphrey was. I don't really need a plan yet.
Fine. I guess little Anthony and I will just live off your lead paint business.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the WorryFree Retirement, with your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist and four-time author, Tony Walker.
Assuming you watch this show with any regularity, you will have picked up on a common theme that quietly yet consistently weaves its way through each and every episode of the WorryFree Retirement, and that is the topic of death. My most recent book, titled Live Well, Die Broke, sure doesn't beat around the bush about this topic, and there's a reason for this. After working in the financial trenches for more than 37 years and in meeting with over 15,000 savers, here's what I've discovered about planning for retirement. If you don't have an honest and open discussion about when you're going to die, there's no way you can have an open and honest discussion about how you and your loved ones are going to use and enjoy this money before it's too late. That's because death and planning for retirement go hand in hand. Yet, surprisingly, 100 years ago, the two did not. That's because this thing we call retirement is really a fairly new phenomenon. 100 years ago, people didn't sit around planning for retirement and trying to figure out the taxes owed on their 401k plans. No, back in those days, you just kept working until you died. That's because 100 plus years ago, with the average life expectancy less than 65 years of age, there was no reason to plan for retirement. Proof of this idea that nobody really expected to live a long time and creation of Social Security with its magic age for collecting benefits at age 65. You see, in 1935, when FDR signed into law this thing we call Social Security, the government knew that most people would never make it past 65, and thus nobody was worried about the Social Security system going broke. That is, until today, when over the years Americans decided to trade in all those Marlboro cigarettes for exercise equipment. So, with more and more people living longer and longer than ever before, there appears to be more focus on the retirement years and less on the inevitable proposition that one day you're going to die. So, knowing that death is still inevitable, why is it that so few people want to talk about it? Particularly when it comes to the important conversation we all need to have with loved ones regarding where our stuff is and how those left behind will organize and process through it. Well, welcome folks to the WorryFree Retirement, and yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest. No, I'm not the Grim Reaper. I'm just the one who needs to remind you that he's still out there. Retirement planning specialist and fiduciary, Tony Walker. And before we get started learning how to better reap for others upon our deaths what we have sowed during our lives, let me introduce three folks in the studio who are alive and well. America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orender. Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson. And finally, our associate producer, Miss Mary Beth Combs. Okay, let's say you're enjoying a worry-free retirement when out of the blue you start having severe headaches. So you go to the doctor and after multiple tests, discover you have cancer and are given only a few months to live. Of all the things you would want to share with loved ones upon receiving such dire news, besides hopefully telling them how much you love them, would be the main thing that would or should tell them about what needs to happen before kicking the bucket. Well, surprisingly, the one thing people don't tell loved ones is this: where their financial stuff is located and how those left behind will settle your affairs after you're dead and gone. I guess the whole topic of retirement is a whole lot more fun to talk about than dying. But it doesn't have to be so difficult, because today I'm going to show you how and why you must have this conversation with loved ones before it's too late, and after you do, just how relieved you're going to feel about life and, yes, even the prospects of dying. So grab a piece of paper and a pencil, because you're going to want to watch this show closely and take notes. We're going to learn the most important things to tell loved ones before you die. I'm Tony Walker. I'll be right back. Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a pension buyout? Has the company you work for moved, been acquired, or closed its doors forever? And finally, do you have a 401k with a previous employer you'd like to move to safer territory? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k or lump sum pension to Tony Walker Financial. Let's meet in person to discuss your retirement options. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your free, no obligation appointment. Let us help you today. Welcome back to the WorryFree Retirement, and I'm excited this morning as we talk about this conversation that everybody needs to have before they die. I've got in the studio my favorite son-in-law, fellow fiduciary, Mr. Trey Juergens. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And this is a two-part series, so today we're kind of talking about what to talk about with a spouse before you die. Next week we're going to have on Heather Hughes with me talking about what to tell your kids before you die. But with your role here, you've been here over 5 years at Tony Walker Financial. Tell folks a little bit about what you do and some of the things you see in terms of documentation and things where people are not prepared.
Yeah, so I'm a full-time advisor here in the Louisville office. I see a lot of the folks that you'll bring back to me as they're kind of going through our process. However, one of the things I do is the delivery appointments. So kind of the culminating event in becoming a client with Tony Walker Financial. We organize and put everything into one binder. Any annuity contracts, brokerage accounts, life insurance policies, everything is in one place. So it's very neat and organized, which we take pride in. However, some of the grocery bags, shoe boxes, different files that
We've seen it all, haven't we?
Folks bring in, they bring in some messes.
And tell us about one incident we had recently. This comes up a lot, but this was an elderly gentleman that I think his wife was suffering some dementia. And just set the stage a little bit about what was going on in their lives and how scattered they were and how they needed us to help them.
So this gentleman had a pretty good feel for his finances. Unfortunately, his wife was starting to slip. He wanted to make things easier for her and for his kids if something happened to him. Unfortunately, he had kind of created a mess for himself with over 7 different annuity contracts with 6 different companies, some in her name, some IRAs, some non-qualified money. He had some other investments outside of that, but he had probably 4 different advisors. Some were totally out of the industry. So he came to us. He understood through the TV show that we knew a thing or two about annuities. We were able to help him come up with a binder to organize everything, have a summary of accounts, become agent of record, which is when we would then be able to advise him on those, call the company.
On all the annuities, yeah.
Help with beneficiary change, address change, any of the service work that you hope your advisor is going to do after the sale. We really kind of helped him come up with a one-stop shop. Unfortunately, she preceded him in death, and then that was able to be a mess that was cleaned up for his beneficiaries being his children.
So we actually got it all cleaned up. She passed away, then we had to go to the next step and get everything into his name properly so that when he passed, which he did, we'll talk about that next week, then we were able to meet with his children, right?
That's correct. So as Mandy does such a great job with the death claim paperwork, he and his family unfortunately got to see that process twice very quickly.
Yeah, and let's do this real quick. I've got Mandy on the line. I want to do a quick Zoom call, and let's go to Mandy right now and just kind of get a feel for what we're doing in our offices to help people with this process. Well, good morning, Mandy, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Tony.
Well, we appreciate you being on with us, and you're coming up on your 2nd year at Tony Walker Financial. So first of all, thank you for your service, and congratulations on hanging in there with me for 2 full years.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Well, great. So basically, among many things you do there at Tony Walker Financial, Mandy, one of the things you do is service what we call our death claims. and that's when people call into the office and they've lost a loved one. So if you would, first of all, start off, how many death claims are we currently processing as we speak?
Currently, I have active about 8 claims on 8 different clients right now.
And over these last couple of years, because you've handled so many death claims, what are some of the, I guess you could say the common, I don't want to say mistakes, but the common things that continue to come up that you feel could be helpful to our audience who's thinking about this very topic, and when they die, not if they die, when they die, they're not kind of left, holding these beneficiaries, holding things up and just feeling out of control with how to handle all this paperwork.
Yes, definitely. You notice things as you process more and more of these situations. Of course, every situation's different, but one of the main things that I see is that beneficiaries or families are not sure where things are located. Just a list of type of accounts, list of where your will is, or the location of those documents seems to be very important, especially if it's a sudden death, unexpected, and the family is just left with not sure where to turn.
What else have you noticed?
Another thing that seems to come into play, of course, you always have to have a death certificate. The funeral homes prepare those and order them for you, but people don't realize each company that you have an account with requires an original death certificate. So we always recommend that they get at least 10 because each company, bank, insurance company, no matter where the account is, they will require that.
And then any other closing thoughts or things you think are important to keep in mind when doing this type of planning?
Something that I've also noticed, and I think you try to stress this issue too, is having everything in one place as far as all of your accounts under one roof, because we offer the service of following up and following through on each individual claim to make sure that those are processed as the beneficiary's request. And when there are outside accounts, we're not able to help as much.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Yeah, you're right. We try to help, but in many cases, it's a mess trying to figure out where all these accounts are. So everything under one roof is a good place to stop. And again, Mandy, thank you so much for your service and for being so willing to help all of these beneficiaries who need this kind of help.
You're welcome, Tony. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Make it a good one. So, Trey, let's do this. Let's take a look at that one roof philosophy. This is kind of cool, and we've kind of changed this over the years to where we've got a one-pager. We'll tell people how to get this in just a second, but I think it's a great conversation starter. But let's go to the first thing. Aaron's over at the helm here. The first thing Mandy talked about is locating documents. Can you imagine the number of people out there that don't know where documents are even located?
Yeah, that, like I said, those grocery bags and shoe boxes, some people know where they are. It's an absolute mess, but finding, locating, understanding what you got, where it is the first step.
Number 2, we brought this up, confirming beneficiaries. So that's something we do when you're in the binder delivery process. We've already confirmed all those beneficiaries, but boy, that's a problem. Folks, if you don't have your beneficiaries updated, even if you update your will, the beneficiaries trump the will, so you could be leaving assets to people that you don't intend to leave them to. Number 3, death certificates. Mandy said 10. How many is the most death certificates you've ever been involved in that's been required?
13.
13.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that something?
Every bank account, every annuity contract, life insurance contract needs an actual copy, certified copy. It can't be scanned.
Yeah. And then finally, number 4 is the follow-through process. I think you all were talking about that case in the essence of time. What happened there? Somebody had a husband who passed away and there was a pension somewhere in Florida. What was that all about?
Yeah, Mandy had to track down basically he was a police officer in Florida for a short time, had a small pension, spousal benefit left to his wife. She had some paperwork, no clue what to do. Mandy jumped in and got it all taken care of for her.
Yeah, it's great. Well, we appreciate all that you're doing for our clients, Trey, and just doing a magnificent job. So when I return, folks, I'm actually going to go over this in detail, but we're going to talk about a couple. All right, and we're going to imagine the husband dies and what happens to all of the income for the spouse when he departs the face of the earth. Good stuff coming back. Let me get the whiteboard out. We'll be right back. Who can you trust? It's one of the most important decisions you'll have to make. Question is, are you ready? Well, we're here to help at Tony Walker Financial. We care more about you than we do your money, and we have over 2,000 happy clients and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau to prove it. Rolling over a 401k, confused about Social Security, maybe you're afraid of running out of money. Learn how to use and enjoy and protect your hard-earned money. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started. One of the things I thought would be interesting to do at this point of the show is just take a typical couple that I work with and the idea of what happens to this person's stuff, we're assuming the male's going to die first, when he passes away, and what income is the spouse left with. Now in this example, this is a typical client I might see. In this case, the husband is age 67, his wife is 62. They have about $30,000 in the bank. That would just be some after-tax money for emergencies, whatnot. He's done pretty well with his 401k. He has about $600,000 in there. Obviously, they're retired. Taking out from the 401k about $2,000 a month. In addition, they have home debt of about $200,000. The home is worth quite a bit of money. And the principal and interest on the home debt is $1,500 a month, which they are servicing just fine. And she has, where she's worked here and there, an IRA of $85,000. So those are the current assets. Again, a very typical client that I might see and work with here at Tony Walker Financial. All right, Aaron, if we would, let's look at the income sources. Currently, in addition to the $2,000 a month they're taking out of their 401k, he has a $3,000 a month pension. Now notice it says 50% survivor. What does that mean? Well, for those who are lucky enough to have pensions, you have to elect an option of what happens to the pension when you die. See, I told you folks, this retirement and death stuff goes hand in hand. So in his case, if he were to die first, his wife would get 50% of that, which would be about $1,500, obviously. What other income sources do we have here, Aaron? Oh yeah, he's got Social Security, $1,800 a month. And then she began her Social Security this year. I think a lot of people just want to take it. They're worried about the government not having the money down the road or whatever. We don't really get into all these break-even points and trying to figure out when you should take Social Security. What I do when I'm doing planning, I look at people's totality, they're holistic. I've done this so long. I mean, literally, I've worked on over 5,000 game plans. And generally, I can craft this so that they feel comfortable about taking Social Security, whether it's now or postponing it. Okay, so that's kind of the scenario, right? Now let's talk about their family. They also have one child, and that child is divorced and has one child, which would be their grandchild, which is a concern because they want to make sure if something happens to either one of them, that things will be taken care of. And as we'll see here, there's a problem. Like most people, their will is totally outdated. It hasn't been updated even since their child had this child. And then also, I talked a little bit about the whole situation, and they admitted that they've never talked about any of this stuff with their daughter. So here's what we're going to do. We're imagining that the husband passes away and that the wife is still around. So as we walk over to the whiteboard, as a planner, as somebody who does retirement planning day in and day out, folks, I meet on average with 30 people, on average 30 people per week. Last year alone, I saw, I think, over 1,500 people. So as the owner of the company, as a fiduciary with 37 years of experience, it surprises people to know that I still meet with all of these people in person or by phone. Yeah, sure, we have Trey and we have Heather and Wes, other fiduciaries that can help you. But I figure most people, as long as Tony Walker's around to help with things, that they're going to want to see me. Oh, incidentally, I almost forgot. We got a wonderful download to offer you. And this is called the Conversation Starter. So to get this conversation going, it's a very simple document. It's free. You can download it at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. I'd highly recommend you download this document and get that conversation started with your spouse and or your children. Okay, so what income sources am I concerned about? Well, currently, this gentleman's taking $2,000 a month from the 401k plan. And again, we're imagining now he has passed away. What I find with a lot of people is they don't have a game plan for their 401k. Yeah, they may have rolled it over to somebody, but in this case, this young lady's going to have to go to somebody and figure out whether to take more or less out of that 401k plan. And what I've found with spouses is when the breadwinner dies, the other spouse remaining gets very, very nervous because in many cases, they don't understand the investments in the 401ks, whether they're growth mutual funds, stocks, bonds, annuities, and this leaves them very leery of taking any more money out, which is not good. Then we talked about the pension, which was $3,000 a month, but remember, that's going to be cut in half because in this example, there was a 50% survivor option, meaning upon his death, her income is going to drop to $1,500 a month. What about Social Security? Well, in that case, she's going to lose hers. I think that was about $750 a month or whatever it is. So what happens when there's a death of a spouse, the one Social Security that's the highest will become the only Social Security. So basically, she'll lose whatever she was drawing, and she will draw this. Now, here's another biggie. Boy, this is a toughie for a lot of remaining spouses. There is a $1,500 a month house payment, a couple $100,000 in debt, and in many cases this happens. Again, not all the time, but a lot of time when a spouse passes away, the other spouse may be in a home looking around going, wait a minute, I don't need all this, or he had a shop in the back. I can't mow all this yard, or whatever the case is, and they start thinking about downsizing. Well, this is a huge decision. I mean, are you going to use some of the 401k to pay off debt? You're going to stay in the house? If you sell the house, are you going to try to downsize? Are you going to move to another location? Are you going to increase your income? Will the new house have debt? See, these are the types of things we at Tony Walker want to be there to help you with. And the key is to get this game plan laid out now. So not if you die, but when you die, your spouse will have everything in order. So that's you right now. If you feel like I just don't have a game plan, I don't have anybody I can trust to take care of me and my spouse when I'm deceased, why don't you do this? Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Just click on that Let's Get Started. Or if you like, you can simply call the toll-free number on your screen. There is absolutely no cost to meet, either by phone or at once. I'll be happy to meet with you in person. Okay, what does the Bible have to say about you and me talking? And imagine this was your last day on earth, or my last day on earth. What would the one thing I would want to share with you about God's Word that's a must for all of us to know and understand? Well, I got to get me a cup of coffee. When I come back, we're going to find that out. I'll be right back. So you've worked 30 or 40 years slaving away at work so you can save away money into your 401k, and now you arrive at the biggest financial decision you're ever going to make, where to invest your 401k plan. Think about it. For all these years, you've had a steady paycheck, compliments from your employer for all of your hard work that you dedicated to them. But now, all of a sudden, you've got to figure out how to replace that paycheck with the money you've been saving. No wonder you're worried about what to do and who to trust with that money, which is why we at Tony Walker Financial are providing a brand new free service called the 10-Minute Fiduciary Phone Call. And here's how simple it is to learn more about our services and our 401k rollover process. First, just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Once there, click on the Let's Get Started button. You'll be taken to a page. Confidentially, you can fill out your information on the screen and then click below the best way for us to speak together. It could either be myself or one of our other trained fiduciaries. It's that easy. So what are you waiting for? Before you make a rash decision and blindly turn your money over to a complete stranger to invest, consider a name and a firm you can trust, Tony Walker Financial. And, oh, by the way, if you like, you can give us a call to speak to us at any time by phone by simply calling the toll-free number on your screen. I'll look forward to speaking with you soon. Oh, thank you, Derek. Appreciate that. Several years ago, clients of mine, an elderly couple, came in for a review. As the couple sat down in my office, I asked how I could be of help. The husband leaned up in his chair with a very serious look on his face and bluntly stated, I've been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and the doc says I only have a few months to live, and I want to make sure everything will be okay for my wife when I pass away. After telling them both how sorry I was to hear of such bad news, and after assuring them that our game plan would not change after he passed, he sat back in his chair with a relieved look on his face and said, thank goodness. After a few minutes of chit-chat and going over a few more details of the plan, I asked him a very personal question, and it went something like this. Mr. Jones, now that you have been given only a few months to live, how's your faith holding up? To which he replied, not good. How so? I asked. And he said, well, I haven't been to church in years. I paused and exclaimed, well, what does your not attending church have to do with your faith? He stammered and mumbled in some sort of nonsense about something he heard at church once and why he thought he was a bad person and couldn't get into heaven and it was too late to be saved by God. So what did I tell him? Well, the same thing I'm getting ready to tell you. You see, friend, each and every week, I do my best to share on this show things about money and life that are important to savers. Today's topic of what to tell loved ones before you die is no different. It's important, but not near as important as what God has to say to you before you die. And trust me on this one, whether you attend church every time the doors open or you're like this gentleman and haven't darkened the doors of a church in years, the good news is what I'm about to share with you is the most important thing I could ever share. And best of all, this good news is from God Himself and available to anyone who can still fog a mirror and wishes to believe it. You ready? Here goes. Pretty simple stuff. You sure? And it's this. For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whoever believes in Him should not perish, but have eternal life. The reason you and I were put on the face of this earth and the reason we can be so confident in spending eternity with the God of the universe is for this reason and this reason alone. And yeah, it's pretty simple. It doesn't say how much you're supposed to go to church, doesn't ask if you've been naughty or nice, doesn't even say anything about how well you handled your money or how much is left in that tax-infested 401k you were so proud of. No, it just states that if you believe in Him, you will be saved. All that God is, was, and will be forever is summed up in this verse, and all you have to do to live it is believe it. You got it? Good. Well, speaking of believing things that are simple to understand, I've got one more question to ask you regarding your money. Do you truly believe that the financial advisor that's in your corner is truly interested in you more than they're interested in your money? And I'm serious about this. Well, if you don't feel this way, why not? Assuming you're retired or retiring soon and you don't have an advisor in whom you can trust, somebody that has a philosophy that matches with you, somebody that has a full-time staff that takes care of all of your issues, someone that can provide you a written game plan that's easy to communicate with your family, well, why don't you consider contacting us? My name is Tony Walker. And for the past 37 years, we've literally helped thousands of savers worry less about money, and we do this with a 5-step process called the Worry-Free Retirement, and we'd like to show you how it works. So if you have access to the internet right now, just do this. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, click on that Let's Get Started, and what's going to happen is that's going to go to our office, and we will follow up to either have a phone call with myself in person, or if it warrants, I'll be happy to meet with you at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. Internet's not really your thing and you just soon give us a call? No problem. Just call the toll-free number on your screen and we'll arrange a time for you and I to visit about your specific situation. And keep in mind, it's absolutely free. Well, this is all the time we have for today's show, part 1, but next week we're going to cover what do you tell your children before you die, and we're very excited that we're going to have in our Louisville studios my favorite financial sidekick in Bowling Green, fellow fiduciary Miss Heather Hughes, who will be here in the studios to talk about this whole issue and what we at Tony Walker are doing to make sure that our clients and their children are on the same page when it comes to their death and how to pass on assets worry-free. But between now and then, you remember, if all else fails, you be worry-free. Make it a good one.